Every year, Americans eat a staggering 20 billion hot dogs.
Yeah, that is a wild number.
I mean, let that number really sink in for a second.
Yeah.
If you lined them all up, you could probably wrap them around the globe multiple times. It is arguably the absolute foundation of the American summer cookout, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You see the grill smoke and you grab a package with, a famous nostalgic logo that you've trusted since childhood, and you just toss it in your grocery cart without a second thought. But if you knew that the first ingredient in the country's most popular brand was basically a factory-produced batter containing pulverized bone fragments, well, you might look at your summer cookout a little differently.
Yeah, and that is exactly the disconnect we are exploring today. We think we know what we are buying when we grab a familiar brand off the shelf. But there is a massive gulf between the image on the packaging and the physical reality of the product inside.
Totally. So welcome to today's deep dive. We have pulled together an incredibly revealing stack of sources for this one. We are looking at historical USDA regulatory documents dating all the way back to 1995.
Right. The actual legal definitions.
Exactly. Plus, we've got deep nutritional and chemical analyses, hazard reports from the Environmental Working Group, consumer investigations, and even insights from a former Army Ranger who now runs a high-end cattle ranch.
Our mission with these sources is to really unmask the actual ingredients inside these cookout staples. We're going to decode the highly deceptive marketing happening right in your grocery aisle and, figure out how to navigate the hot dog section like a food safety expert.
Because behind the catchy 150-year-old jingles and the heritage packaging lies a wild world of mechanical meat paste, regulatory loopholes, and massive global conglomerates.
Yeah, it's quite the rabbit hole.
It really is.
Yeah.
To really understand the modern commercial hot dog, we have to start at the very foundation, which is the meat itself. And honestly, it is very far from the traditional image of a butcher grinding up cuts of beef.
Oh, for sure. Right, because when you look at the ingredient labels of some of the highest volume budget brands, the first ingredient isn't actually beef or pork in the way you picture it.
Right.
It is often a designated ingredient called mechanically separated poultry, or MSP, alongside mechanically separated pork.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading the actual 1995 USDA definition of mechanically separated meat is, it's a visceral experience.
That's one word for it.
Right. The USDA officially defines it as a paste-like or batter-like product, and the way they make it is intense. They basically take the animal bones that still have some edible tissue attached to them, crush those bones, and then force everything through a specialized sieve under incredibly high pressure.
Yeah, think of it like a giant industrial-scale garlic press.
Oh, wow.
But because of the immense pressure used in that machinery, it's not just the soft muscle tissue that gets pushed through the holes of the sieve. I mean, the physical reality of crushing bones means bone dust and bone fragments are going to make it into the final meat batter.
And the USDA actually regulates exactly how much bone you're allowed to eat in these things.
Yes, they do.
They legally permit this paste to contain up to 1% powdered bone solids, which they measure as calcium content on a chemical test. But what really got me was the particle size.
Yeah, the 2 millimeters.
Yes. The USDA legally allows bone particles up to 2 millimeters in size to remain in the final hot dog. 2 millimeters. I mean, have you ever gotten a poppy seed stuck in your teeth?
All the time.
That's about 1 millimeter. So we are talking about potentially biting into a bone fragment twice the size of a poppy seed.
It completely changes the texture and the nutritional profile. And, it's not just premium cuts on those bones either.
Definitely not.
According to Dr. Scott John's breakdown of commercial hot dog ingredients, the industry relies heavily on what they call trimmings.
Right, trimmings.
Yeah. In the meatpacking world, trimmings is just a polite, sanitized word for low-grade muscle, skin, feet, blood, liver, and other edible byproducts. They take these scraps, blast them with pressure, and form them into a cohesive tube.
Okay, so mechanically separated meat is basically the hot dog equivalent of particle board. You're taking the absolute cheapest scraps, adding immense pressure, and literally gluing it all into a new shape.
That is a highly functional analogy, actually. You are building a composite material out of the absolute cheapest available inputs.
Wow.
And this is not some niche bottom shelf practice that only happens at discount stores. I mean, the #1 selling hot dog brand in America by sheer volume is Bar S.
Really?
Yeah. If you pick up a package of Bar S Classic Franks, the first 2 ingredients listed are mechanically separated chicken and mechanically separated pork.
You see the exact same thing with major store brands too, like Walmart's Great Value. And those store brands are particularly tricky because the retailer often changes their contract suppliers behind the scenes without any notice to you, the consumer.
Right, they just swap them out.
Exactly. So the quality, the sourcing, and the exact ratio of that meat paste can vary wildly from month to month. And the packaging never changes.
What is even more concerning, I think, is how this paste is used to create a health halo.
Oh, like with the turkey dogs.
Yes. Take a brand like Jennie-O Turkey Franks. They are heavily marketed to health-conscious consumers. The packaging makes it look like a smart, lean swap for a heavy beef hot dog.
Sure, it sounds healthier.
But if you actually turn the package around and read the label, the primary ingredient is mechanically separated turkey. You aren't getting a ground, lean turkey breast. You are getting that same high-pressure turkey paste.
I have to push back slightly here, though. Like, I hear the particle board reality, and it sounds gross, obviously. But if the USDA legally defines this exact process and regulates it down to the literal millimeter of the bone fragment, isn't it perfectly safe for us to eat? Like, nobody is dropping dead from eating a turkey frank.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, yes, it is legally recognized as safe from immediate harm. You are not going to eat one and immediately fall ill.
Right.
But we have to distinguish between safe from an immediate choking hazard and nutritionally viable food. What this base material represents is a massive shift from actual recognizable nutrition to extreme industrial processing. You're moving away from a whole food that your body knows how to digest and replacing it with an engineered composite.
And that engineered composite creates a completely new engineering problem. Because, I mean, if you have a wet tube of crushed bone and tissue paste, you can't just leave that on a supermarket
That
shelf.
would be awful.
It would rot in a matter of days, and it probably wouldn't taste like much either. So to hold it together, make it taste like a classic hot dog, and keep it sitting in a refrigerated case for months, the manufacturers have to pump it full of chemicals.
Precisely. The base material is so degraded that it requires an arsenal of chemical additives just to survive the supply chain. For instance, many commercial brands use an ingredient called potassium lactate.
Oh, what does that do?
Its primary job is to keep the hot dog moist and to inhibit bacterial growth.
And the way they make potassium lactate is honestly fascinating.
Yeah.
Lactic acid naturally forms in meat as it ages and begins to spoil. So chemical factories produce potassium lactate by taking lactic acid and neutralizing it with potassium hydroxide.
Right.
They're essentially pumping in a chemical neutralizer to mask the aging process of the meat paste and keep the moisture trapped inside.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Okay.
And then you have the sugars. Corn syrup and dextrose are incredibly common ingredients in mainstream hot dogs.
Which is weird to think about in meat.
Right. On the surface, corn syrup is just a cheap filler that adds weight and a little sweetness. But it does something very specific and dangerous when it is cooked. When you combine the sugars from corn syrup with the proteins in the meat paste and then expose them to heat, a chemical reaction occurs. It creates advanced glycation end products, or AGs.
Wait, what exactly are AGs? Like, in the context of my body, what are they actually doing?
AGs are essentially sticky, rogue compounds. When they enter your bloodstream, they have a tendency to stick to the walls of your blood vessels.
Oh, that doesn't sound good.
It isn't. Over time, they can physically obstruct small blood vessels, stiffen the vascular walls, and cause systemic inflammation throughout your body. So that cheap corn syrup filler actually becomes a vascular hazard when you grill it.
Wow. But the additive that draws the most severe warnings from public health advocates isn't even the corn syrup. It is sodium nitrite, or sodium nitrate. The Environmental Working Group, the EWG, actually lists this chemical in their dirty dozen of food additives to actively avoid.
And the chemistry behind why the EWG flags it is really crucial to understand here. Sodium nitrite is a highly effective preservative.
It works really well.
It does. It absolutely prevents the growth of botulism-causing bacteria. And, it artificially locks in that classic bright pink color we all associate with hot dogs. Without it, the meat paste would turn a dull, unappetizing gray.
But the problem arises when you put that pink hot dog on a grill. Because when nitrites are exposed to high heat, they combine with natural compounds in the meat called amines. Wait, what exactly is an amine?
Amanins are simply organic compounds derived from ammonia. They naturally occur in meat as the amino acids in the proteins break down, so they are a totally normal part of eating protein.
Okay, so you have the chemical nitrite and the natural amines from the meat. And when you blast them with the heat of a grill, they bind together to form new compounds called nitrosamines.
Exactly. And nitrosamines are potent, highly studied carcinogens.
Yikes.
Yeah. This specific chemical reaction, nitrites plus amines plus heat, is precisely why the World Health Organization took the dramatic step of classifying processed meats as Group 1 carcinogens.
Group 1.
Yes, that classification puts commercial hot dogs in the exact same hazard category as tobacco smoking and asbestos.
Now, just to be completely clear so we don't panic anyone, the absolute risk level is much lower than smoking a pack of cigarettes. Eating a hot dog is not a guaranteed cancer diagnosis.
No, definitely not.
But the WHO is saying the causal link to cancer is just as scientifically undeniable as the link between smoking and lung cancer. Their data noted that eating just 50 grams of processed meat daily, which is roughly the size of one standard hot dog, increases your relative risk of colorectal cancer by 18% over your lifetime.
Right. And consumers started catching on to this. The word nitrates became a huge red flag for parents packing school lunches. So the major brands had to pivot, but they still needed a cheap way to preserve the meat and keep it pink.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You walk down the aisle today, and you see premium brands like Oscar Mayer with big green labels that scream uncured and no artificial preservatives. And you think, great, they fixed it.
Right, problem solved.
Exactly. But how did they do it? By replacing synthetic sodium nitrite with celery juice powder. But wait, if celery has nitrates naturally, are we just splitting hairs here? Are these uncured brands actually pulling a massive marketing trick on people trying to buy safer food?
Unfortunately, yes. It is one of the most successful regulatory loopholes in the modern grocery store.
Unbelievable.
Federal rules dictate that if you cure a meat with synthetic, factory-made nitrates, it is cured. But if you cure it with natural vegetable-based nitrates like celery powder, you are legally allowed to label it as uncured.
That is maddening. It's like a company claiming their soda is caffeine-free because they didn't add synthetic caffeine powder, but they brewed the whole thing using espresso beans.
Yeah.
The chemical is still there. It is just wearing a different costume.
That is exactly what it is. Harvard researchers have confirmed that the human digestive system converts the natural nitrates from celery juice powder into the exact same harmful nitrites.
Wow.
And then those combine with the aminins to form the exact same carcinogenic nitrosamines. Your body simply does not care if the nitrate originated in a chemical plant or a celery stalk. The resulting chemical reaction in your gut is identical.
Which naturally leads to a huge point of confusion in our sources.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the veggie paradox. Because if the natural nitrates in celery juice powder are turning into cancer-causing compounds in my hot dog, why on earth is eating a raw stalk of celery in a salad considered universally healthy?
It entirely comes down to the delivery system and the surrounding environment. Vegetables naturally contain high levels of vitamin C and various powerful antioxidants.
Okay.
Those specific antioxidant compounds actively block the conversion of nitrates into nitrosamines in your digestive tract. So when you eat a salad, you ingest the nitrates, but you also ingest the natural antidote right along with it.
I see. But when you extract just the celery juice to make a concentrated powder for a hot dog, you are stripping away all those protective antioxidants.
Exactly. You strip away the protection, and then you inject it into the worst possible environment. The meat itself is high in protein, which provides the amines. Furthermore, red meat is high in heme iron.
Heme iron being the specific type of iron found in animal blood and muscle tissue, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And in this chemical reaction, heme iron acts as a catalyst. It actively promotes and accelerates the formation of those harmful nitrosamine compounds.
That's a bad combination.
It really is. So you are taking the nitrate out of its safe, antioxidant-rich plant home and putting it into an iron-rich meat paste that is essentially designed to turn it into a carcinogen.
So we have a clear picture now. Manufacturers are starting with cheap, pressurized bone and tissue paste. They have to pump it full of chemical neutralizers, sugars that stiffen your blood vessels, and deceptive celery powders that form carcinogens, all just to make it shelf-stable.
It's quite a recipe.
It is. Knowing all of this, how do these brands convince millions of people to keep buying them every single week?
Well, they do it by relying on the most powerful marketing tool in existence, which is nostalgia. They use heritage imagery, trusted logos, and perceived health halos to create a powerful illusion in the grocery aisle. They know that if you feel a sense of comfort, you won't turn the package over to read the ingredients.
Let's look at the higher authority illusion first. Hebrew National is a massive premium brand, and they lean heavily on their strict kosher certification.
Right.
For a lot of consumers, kosher implies a fundamentally cleaner, safer product. And to be fair to the sources, that certification does mean the hot dog is 100% beef. The kosher laws strictly forbid the use of mechanically separated byproducts from pigs or poultry.
True, but consumers often conflate religious sourcing laws with modern nutritional science. The kosher laws tightly govern the sourcing, the inspection, and the humane slaughter of the animal.
Which is great.
It is, but they do not govern the long-term cardiovascular impact of chemical preservatives. A Hebrew National Frank still contains synthetic sodium nitrite, and it still carries a highly significant sodium load. It is a premium meat, yes, but it is still subjected to the same chemical preservation.
Then you have the heritage illusion. These are the brands that leverage a deep-rooted American history. Think of Nathan's Famous, established in 1916 at Coney Island, Armour, which has been around since 1867, John Morrell dating all the way back to 1827.
The classics.
Exactly. The packaging uses old-school fonts and classic colors to evoke a sense of 19th century Americana. You pick up a pack of Armour, and you feel like you are buying a product of traditional American craftsmanship.
But the reality of who actually owns those recipes today is completely different. Nathan's, Armour, and John Morrell are all now owned by Smithfield Foods. And Smithfield Foods is a subsidiary of the WH Group, which is a massive global conglomerate based in China.
So the profits are leaving America, and the traditional 1800s recipes have been completely devolved to fit a global corporate supply chain. Instead of craft butchery, you are getting cheap meat paste packed with sodium to extend the shelf life. A single Armour hot dog has 550 milligrams of sodium per link. A Nathan's has 560 milligrams.
What's fascinating here is how the industry weaponizes those childhood memories. You hear the famous jingle, you see the retro logo, and your brain instantly equates that with safety and tradition.
It works so well.
It does. But while you aren't looking, these conglomerates are quietly optimizing the product for profit margins, not nutrition.
Shrinkflation is a perfect, tangible example of that optimization. Tyson Foods, which owns the Ballpark brand, quietly reduced their standard 8-pack of hot dogs from 16 ounces to 15 ounces. Nathan's dropped their pack from 14 ounces down to 12 ounces.
And the price didn't change.
No, the price you pay at the register stayed exactly the same, but you are getting significantly less food. And the formulation of that food is getting aggressively worse. Ballpark Prime, for instance, hides a staggering 710 milligrams of sodium and 9 grams of saturated fat in a single link.
Yeah, that's heavy. And beyond the poor nutritional profiles and the shrinking packages, there are very real physical safety hazards hiding behind these heritage labels. The recall history in the highly consolidated processed meat industry is a glaring red flag for consumers.
It really is. Think about the last time you bought a pack of budget hot dogs or frozen corn dogs. You probably grabbed a familiar brand on autopilot. But the reality in these massive processing facilities is grim.
Very.
In 2016, Bar S had to recall nearly 373,000 pounds of hot dogs and corn dogs. The USDA notice specifically cited recurring listeria issues at their facility. Recurring is a terrifying word to see in a federal food safety notice because it implies a systemic failure to clean the machinery.
And it isn't just bacteria either. In 2025, Foster Farms had to recall 3.8 million pounds of corn dogs, and State Fair recalled an astonishing 58 million pounds.
Oh my God.
Why? Because consumers were biting into the corn dogs and finding actual pieces of wood embedded in the batter. The industrial machinery had broken down and contaminated millions of meals.
And we really can't ignore the catastrophic 2024 Boar's Head recall. Boar's Head is viewed as the absolute pinnacle of the premium deli counter. But a listeria outbreak in their facility caused 61 hospitalizations and 10 deaths.
It was awful.
When federal inspectors finally went in, they didn't find a pristine traditional deli. They found black mold on the ceilings, puddles of blood, and insect infestations.
Which completely shatters the illusion.
It is the ultimate irony, really. You are standing in the grocery aisle buying a John Morrell hot dog because it feels like a piece of authentic 1800s Americana.
Yeah.
But what you are actually buying is a highly processed, chemically preserved paste engineered by a massive overseas conglomerate produced in facilities struggling with mold and wood splinters.
Yeah.
We are not buying food anymore. We are buying a corporate margin decision dressed up in a bun.
The contrast is stark, no doubt. But it is important that we don't leave this conversation feeling entirely defeated. Because while the industrial giants have engineered the quality out of their mass market products, there's a blueprint for a better bite.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the sources highlight several ways you can absolutely still enjoy a summer cookout if you shift your focus from commodity brands back to craft.
Yes, let's talk about what actually makes a good hot dog and the brands that are doing it right. And surprisingly, one of the most accessible options comes from a warehouse club, Costco's Kirkland Signature Hot Dog.
A class.
Everyone knows the famous $1.50 food court combo. Well, the price hasn't changed since 1985. But what's more impressive is the retail pack you can buy to take home to your own grill. It is 100% USDA-inspected whole muscle beef. There are no cheap fillers, no corn syrup, and absolutely no mechanically separated meat paste. It's just actual beef.
You also see incredible quality when you look at regional heroes. These are the brands that have remained family-owned, resisted corporate consolidation, and maintained traditional production methods. They actually care about the culinary experience.
Right, like the snap.
Exactly.
When you bite into a cheap, skinless commodity hot dog, it's just mush. But a real hot dog has a physical snap when you bite it, which comes from using a natural casing instead of an extruded plastic mold.
Yes. Brands like Solon's in Buffalo, which has been run by the same family for 5 generations. Cayem, which makes the famous Fenway Franks in Boston, uses a natural lamb casing to get that snap. Sabrett, the iconic New York City cart hot dog, uses a natural sheep casing. These brands still start with real, recognizable meat, and they respect the texture of the food.
If you are looking for the absolute healthiest options, like if you want to bypass the nitrites entirely, you have to look at brands like Applegate Naturals. They use 100% grass-fed beef, no corn syrup, and a very short, readable ingredient list that you can actually pronounce.
That's a great option.
Or Belinsky's organic chicken sausages. They use actual chicken breast, not high-pressure bone paste, and contain 0 nitrites of any kind, whether synthetic or celery-derived. Plus, they pack 13 grams of protein.
And then there's the absolute premium tier, the artisans reimagining what a hot dog can be. Casey Cattle Company is a massive standout in our sources here.
Oh, the Wagyu guys.
Yeah, it's run by Patrick Montgomery, a former Army Ranger. They don't use trimmings. They use 100% American Wagyu beef. The ingredient label is perfectly clean, it's genuinely uncured, and it boasts 10 grams of protein. Food and Wine magazine reviewed it and literally described it as being like eating a steak in a bun. That single review caused them to sell $250,000 in inventory in just 3 days.
Okay, so we know how to find a better brand. We avoid the paste, we avoid the celery powder, we look for real beef or natural casings. But the sources also point out that how we cook them matters just as much as what we buy. You mentioned earlier that high heat spikes those cancer-causing nitrosamines.
Yes, it does.
So what does this all mean for our listeners' weekend barbecue? Are you seriously telling me I have to microwave my expensive Wagyu hot dogs just to avoid nitrosamines?
Well, this raises an important question about the balance between living life, enjoying our food culture, and mitigating risk. The chemical science is very clear here. High temperature grilling or frying, basically anything over 302 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius, dramatically spikes the formation of nitrosamines in the meat.
Really? Just from the heat?
Yes, we're talking up to 35 parts per billion of carcinogenic compounds. Microwaving, interestingly enough, uses an entirely different heating mechanism and only produces about 3 parts per billion.
Okay, but nobody wants a sad, microwaved Wagyu hot dog at a summer cookout. The char is the best part.
Precisely. Food is meant to be enjoyed, not just endured. So the scientific compromise is heat management. If you are going to use a grill, use medium heat. Let it cook slower. Don't char the hot dog to a blackened crisp, because that black char is where the nitrosamines are highly concentrated.
That makes sense.
And avoid boiling it vigorously, which ruins the texture and destroys the snap of a good natural casing. You choose a brand with real whole muscle meat, free of synthetic nitrites, and you cook it gently on a medium grill. That is the best, safest middle ground.
So bringing this all together, the modern commercial hot dog industry really is a masterclass in deception. They are masking cheap, mechanical bone and meat paste, hidden inflammatory sugars, and chemical preservatives behind decades of beloved American nostalgia. They rely on you being in a rush, grabbing that familiar yellow and red package on autopilot, and never asking questions.
But the power remains entirely with the consumer. By taking just 10 seconds to read the ingredient label, by actively avoiding synthetic nitrites and the tricky celery powder loopholes, and by supporting the craft brands that use real whole muscle meats, you can absolutely still enjoy this iconic cultural food safely.
Every single time you stand in that grocery aisle, you are casting a vote with your dollar. Choosing to pay an extra $2 or $3 for a premium brand isn't just paying a fancy markup. It is literally the cost of avoiding wood splinters, listeria outbreaks, and pulverized bone paste. It's the price of buying actual food.
And more importantly, it sends a clear financial message to the market that quality, transparency, and physical safety still matter to the American consumer.
Exactly. So as you get ready to fire up the grill for your next summer cookout, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If the humble hot dog, a food so incredibly simple and iconic, has undergone such extreme, quiet industrialization while hiding behind a 150-year-old jingle, what other beloved childhood staples sitting in your pantry right now have been completely engineered into corporate margin decisions while you weren't looking?